Chicago, what up, though? What up, though? Now, let me preface this part of the show by saying that I'm going to extend a little bit of grace over into Brandon Johnson, ladies and gentlemen. Let me warn you, all right? I'm going to extend a little bit of grace over into Brandon Johnson. And the reason that I'm going to extend a little bit of grace to Brandon Johnson, and it's not because he should not be held accountable for how he's mismanaging the city. No. That's not what grace is. See, grace is not to absolve you of responsibility. Grace is to be extended to you based off of the fact that I want you to do better, and I see the potential in you. That's what grace is. Grace is not something that you deserve. Grace is something that's given to you because we see the opportunity for you to do a better job. But in order for me to extend grace, you're going to have to hold yourself accountable. It doesn't remove the responsibility. It does not remove the responsibility, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. They said, Anton, did they threaten you? Ain't nobody threatening me. Ain't nobody threatening me. Anton is over here having a conversation. But the reason that I'm going to extend grace is because I think I might have been slightly wrong. I'm going to bring myself to the front of the congregation. And the reason that I've been wrong is because I've been overlooking the person that's been at the forefront of this thing the whole time. And the reason that he's been at the forefront of this thing the whole time is because Brandon neglected to throw him under the bus. So I'm going to have to give him a little bit of credit for that. Let me bring y'all up to speed of what I'm talking about, right? Make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications.
Good afternoon. I'm Erica Sargent.
Great to have you with us. I'm Joe Donlin. We begin here at 5 with breaking news. The tents are up, but not for long. Today, Governor J.B. Pritzker abandoned plans to build a migrant camp in Brighton Park, saying there are too many serious environmental concerns.
Our drone capturing this video showing just how much construction was already done at the site at 38th in California. Yesterday, the state halted work there, saying the Illinois EPA was in the process of reviewing a more than 700-page environmental report the city released late Friday night. The report describes mercury found in the soil there, which the city says has since been removed. Other issues the city claims were covered by 6 inches of crushed gravel. Then today, the state says the site, which the city chose, is a no-go. So how did this all come to be?
CBS 2 political reporter Chris Ty live for us in the newsroom with what this does to the relationship between the governor and the mayor, and also what's next for migrants in Chicago. Chris?
Joe. So here's the thing, right? A lot of people may not be familiar with, because governors tend to not be as popular as mayors, because mayors tend to be the ones that's at the forefront of whatever it is that's happening inside of your cities, right? And so we know Brandon Johnson. We know Lori Lightfoot. We know Mike Johnson over there in Denver. We know who these mayors are. The Eric Adams, we're going to bring him to the front of the congregation too. We know who these people are, right? But the person that we have not been talking about is J.B. Pritzker. J.B. Pritzker. J.B. Pritzker is the governor of Illinois that in a lot of these instances are making the decision of where these sites are going to be constructed, including the one that's at the forefront of all of the controversy right now when it comes to migrant crisis over in Chicago, and that is the site of this tent city where it's supposedly contaminated, but all of the blame was going on Brandon Johnson. J.B. Pritzker. See, the people that's in Illinois know who he is, but the people outside of Illinois don't know who J.B. Pritzker is. J.B. Pritzker is this mob boss looking man that's at the bottom right here that let the mayor of Chicago take all of the heat, which he does deserve a lot of it, but I'm not really sure that he deserves all of the heat, and some of that blame need to be spread out a little bit. Let me continue to play this, and then you guys will maybe understand what I'm saying.
And Erica, winter starts in 16 days. The promise by Mayor Johnson has been to have a more formal plan in place by that date. Today, a setback served up by the state as the clock ticks and the temps fall.
I'm moving with incredible expediency.
That urgency dealt a blow Tuesday by the governor, who at 10 a.m. said
their plan by EPA had been to review.
Hold on, before we get into this, look at his background. Look at what it is that he continues to have news conferences in front of. They're going to be in the library. They're going to be in the school. They're going to have the giraffe in the back. All of this is set up, okay? All of this is being promoted and shown in order to paint a picture subconsciously of how you're supposed to view the Illinois governor, who is smart enough to be quiet when he's moving and letting the blame shift and then taking the credit when good things happen within the state or the city of Chicago, right? Let's continue.
It's a 700-plus page document that was delivered to them, so they're making sure that they're doing a thorough job.
An hour later, a knockout punch for Brighton Park's chances of ever housing migrants at this already built out and paid for migrant base camp. Pritzker's head of the Illinois EPA writing current and planned site conditions do not adequately reduce risks of human exposure to known and potential environmental conditions. The governor adding, we will not proceed with housing families on a site where serious environmental concerns are still present. My administration remains committed to a data-driven plan to improve the asylum seeker response, and we will continue to coordinate with the city of Chicago as we work to expand available shelter through winter.
My administration, key word, my administration remains committed to a data-driven plan to improve the asylum seeker response. Asylum seeker, listen, words mean things. And this is a carefully crafted response that probably wasn't even written by him. Response, and we will continue to coordinate with the city of Chicago. Let's continue.
The state of Illinois knew that this assessment was happening and felt confident enough to continue to build on this site and to go into a contract with Garda World.
That's the
So, and I'm a deep dive because I'm going to play that whole interview. We're going to come back. We're going to review. I just wanted to give y'all the surface level understanding summary of what's going on. The state of Illinois made the decision to go and build over in the city of Chicago, this migrant shelter, this tent city. They allocated the funds and the resources. They told them that, listen, this site is what it's supposed to be, and this is how we going to move, and so on and so forth, right? In Chicago, this is what we want you to do. And they are the ones that selected who it was that was going to be the contractor that continues to go through with this thing. And then they let Chicago and Mayor Brandon Johnson take all of the shrapnel and the hits as a result of it publicly, including from yours truly, Anton, from AntonDaniels.com. And this is why we have to come back to the front of the congregation and identify all of the culprits and all of the people that continue to do the things that's not in the best interest of your people, because it's not just the people that are voting in the city of Chicago. It's all of y'all that are in Chicago and everybody that's in Illinois that continue to elect these egregious people that continue to do the things that's not in the best interest of its constituents and its residents. So if now that he's opening up his mouth, because that's a smart move by you, fam. If you identify somebody that's not on your team, you're going to have to stop letting them let you take the shrapnel as a result. See, I know what it feel like, B. Johnson. I know what you know why I know what it feel like? Because for a long time, I had been on platforms where my character had been being painted a certain way, and I kept quiet and I kept chill. But eventually, I had to break out. And then the truth had to show its ugly head. And again, this does not absolve the haughty mayor from standing on whatever it is that he's standing on. But the reality is that now we're starting to get the truth, because the Illinois governor, J.B. Pritzker, is maybe the mastermind behind all of this. See, I knew it had to be something else going on out here in these streets. Let me continue to play it for you, and then we're going to hear Brandon Johnson's entire response so that we can break it down.
Company that built out the camp. So what's the mayor's plan B?
As other folks have asked for plan B, I've been planning for plan B, C, and D, and F, E, and F from the very moment that I became the mayor of the city of Chicago.
No specific plan B was offered, but former UIC political science professor Dick Simpson says what this does offer up is a glimpse into what friction between a Democratic governor and a Democratic mayor looks and sounds like.
The relations between Brandon Johnson and Governor Pritzker are a little tense. They're not on the same page. The city needs more money. The state has less to give. So
when the money start getting short, then you're going to start seeing the dominoes fall. As long as the money is flowing, then the hose is going to be hoeing. As long as the money is flowing, then the hose is going to be hoeing. But when that money start drying up and it get cold outside, then you're going to start seeing some blame go around. And don't nobody want to be left holding the bag. That's the facts. Nobody wants to be left holding the bag. When the money is flowing and the tricks is tricking, then the men that's coming up as Johns, they're going to be sticking. But when the recession start hitting, it's going to be a whole nother licking. You know what I'm saying? Out here in these streets. You're going to be licking your chops. You're going to be licking your wounds. But you certainly ain't going to be tricking. Because the money ain't there no more. Now it's a recession. They can't depend on Biden, and so now you're seeing the dominoes starting to fall. They thought that the federal government was going to save them in order to continue to make them look good, so they continue to do whatever the bidding was of the people that was above them. See, complaints go up, not down. Complaints go up, not down. That's what I've learned. So when Biden said, now Illinois is saying, Brandon Johnson said, nope, don't look at me. Look at JB. And JB said, don't look at me. Look at Biden. And Biden said, don't look at me. Look at the voters. Yeah. Let me show y'all the whole interview. Let's have a conversation with Brandon Johnson because now more than ever, he deciding to talk. See, he becoming more Eric Adams-ish than ever before.
We got news from the governor. I'm sure you got it as well. That Brighton Park's a no-go. Can you first of all give us a reaction and what would be the plan B now that you can't use this site?
Yeah, well, first of all, the mission is still very much alive. I've said from the very beginning, especially as winter is approaching and weather is shifting, is to get people out of police stations, women, children sleeping on the floors, those who are sleeping outside, to remove people from police districts. And we've been doing that work. In fact, I believe the latest number that I have, there were almost 4,000 people in police districts as well as the airport. That number is now down to under 500. And so that work continues because of the type of collaboration that we're bringing. And look, this site, when the state of Illinois took control over this contract, going into this agreement with Garda World, they fully understood that we were providing the necessary assessments to take a look at the environmental dynamics that exist that we figured because of bad toxicity and bad policies over the course of generations, that discovering toxicity there wasn't a surprise. And so as we were going through that process, the state of Illinois continued to build this base camp, knowing full well that we were providing this assessment. And so
the state of, be very careful, listen to the words. When we took over based off of what was already provided for us. The state of Illinois decided to go forward with what is going on right here. He's shifting blame now. He's no longer saying, listen, I'm standing on my square. We this and that. We so on and so forth. He's saying, listen, I's tired, boss. I's tired, boss. And the state of Illinois is the ones that's responsible for what's happening out here in these streets. And I'd like to imagine that J.B. Pritzker is not happy about that.
All of what we have done up until this point, continuing to bring people together, the state of Illinois knew that this assessment was happening and felt confident enough to continue to build on this site and to go into a contract with Garda World. Now look, there's been
the state of Illinois decided that they wanted to move forward with this contract and that this site was viable for us to throw up these tents. See what happens when you let people into the house. Look. Brandon Johnson, Lori Lightfoot, J.B. Pritzker, and every other sanctuary city wouldn't even have to be dealing with this nonsense. They could have went on and continued to do the worst thing for the community without having to deal with all of this nonsense. But when you start to let people in and you didn't listen to Trump in the first place and you wanted to leave the borders open, now all of y'all are under fire and you're seeing blame go around instead of responsibility being taken.
Third-party validators that have indicated, Dr. Buchanan is one of them, the University of Illinois at Chicago, that this site is safe. The state did not provide any additional guidelines or any sort of methodology in which they were requiring us to go by. So we use the standards that were available to us. The site has been substantiated at being safe by third-party validators. And again, the contract that the state of Illinois went into with Garda World, as they continue to build out on this site, there was no indication.
The contract that the state of Illinois went into with Garda World, The contract that the state of Illinois, he didn't say Chicago, he said that the contract that the state of Illinois went into with Garter World, that's what he said. Now, I'd like to imagine that the people over there and J.B. Pritzker and his staff is not happy about the fact that Brandon. Listen, at this point, if I'm going to speak for Brandon, he is not under duress. He does not feel a certain type of way. He does not want to hurt himself. Nothing is going to happen to Brandon Johnson. We want him to continue to tell on this guy that apparently is making decisions without consulting the people of Chicago and then letting Brandon Johnson take all of the shrapnel as a result of it, apparently.
Throughout this entire process, that a standard or a different methodology was preferable by the state of Illinois. Now, as far as, our plan is still very much alive. As I said, that, as we continue to remove people out of police districts, that assignment that I've given to my administration, we're working through that. And again, from 4,000 people that were sleeping outside or in police districts and an airport, we've reduced that number significantly down to 500. And we're going to continue to assess sites because the mission is still very much alive. We have to make sure that this migrant crisis and this mission, as you all know, is an international crisis. In fact, we have to continue to plan ahead. It's imperative. This time last year,
I had to speed it up when he was doing that last press conference, and I sped it up, and it sounded like exactly what it is that he's talking right now. This man is talking so fast, I got to process it with my C-suit brain to make sure that I'm assessing what's going on right here.
In November and December, 8 buses came between 2 months this time last year. We've received over 80 buses alone just in the month of November.
They received over 80 buses of migrants in November alone. Over 80 buses of that's what happened when you see. Now that's on your watch, Brandon. And this is why we have to spread the blame out accordingly, because on your watch, you said that you was going to become a migrant city, a sanctuary city. And so now, as a result of it, you getting all of the buses that you asked for because you advocated against and you aligned yourself with the same narrative that the Biden administration did in order to be able to get elected by the people, and y'all wanted to leave the borders open. And so now you messed around and found out. So now that you have a bunch of buses, 80 buses, and they not slowing down. And in the springtime, similar to how when the real estate market starts to heat up, the buses is going to start coming through even more. And you got all of this stuff that's going on now. We got infighting between the governor of Illinois and Brandon.
So it's clear that, forces that want to continue to send people to the city of Chicago, that have always been clear that we have to be forthright and plan ahead, and that's what we're going to continue to do.
So, Mayor, an outdoor encampment, whether it's at Brighton Park or the one at 115th and Halstead, you're still on that mission of finding an outdoor encampment.
Well, what our mission is to make sure that we are removing people off of the floors of police stations. And so we're still looking at brick and mortar. And this assignment, as I've put forth several months ago, where the base camp was an option for us to be able to address this crisis. That's the leadership that's required in this moment. That's the leadership that I've provided. So it's not just base camps, it's the continuous work to work with the faith community as we've done, but also to look at brick and mortar spaces. But we have to plan ahead, and part of that planning is looking at base camps. Yep.
Mayor, was it a mistake to not?
I got you, Love C. I'm going to read that super chat shortly.
What was found at that site? Because the report makes it clear that the testers were aware that there were mercury and other issues there in mid-November. So could your administration have not shared that sooner, and we could have moved on from this location?
Well,
is that a misstep on your part?
Now, keep in mind also, and I don't know whose fault it is because I just see mudslinging at this point. But keep in mind this also, ladies and gentlemen, that the money has already been allocated and spent on contractors that have been doing the work for a shelter that may never, ever come to fruition. So this is more waste, more money that nobody can be accountable for because it's not coming out of their bank account. It is the people of Chicago and the people of Illinois that is paying for all of this construction and all of this money that is never going to be refunded, because ain't no refunds. Ain't no refunds when contractors get their money. I ain't never seen no contractor give no refund for anything, because they said we did the work that we signed up to do. And so they've already allocated resources and thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars to go over, and everybody getting paid and everybody getting that bag. And it's coming at the behest of the tax-paying citizens of Illinois and Chicago. And y'all continue to go into a deficit, and the budget is absolutely messed up. And they moved forward, regardless of who fault that this is, because this is what shows you what inept leadership looks like. They moved forward with the construction of this. For what reason? It makes no sense whatsoever. You're never going to get me to personally, if I wouldn't do it for myself, then I wouldn't do it for you. I'm never going to build on something that I'm not sure whether or not I'm going to get approved for housing for it ahead of time. Why would I ever do that? Why would I do that? Why is this not being brought? Because see, this is not just a blame game. This is now responsibility and inept leadership again. It makes no sense whatsoever. And everybody is just finessing and finagling, but ain't nobody really taking into account and taking responsibility for the decisions that they make. They just blame it. Very rarely, I don't think that one time in my entire life, in my entire existence, and I've been paying attention to politics for a long time. It happens when it comes to corporate leadership. It happens when it comes to private citizens. It happens when people go to jail. But the one thing that I have never seen, and maybe I'm just off, I have never seen a politician say it was my fault. Never. Never. Ever. I've never seen anybody say, my bad, or I made a mistake, or that one was on me. I thought that we was going to be able to get it done, but we wasn't able to get it done. Not once I ever heard a politician say, it is my fault. It's the Republicans' fault. It's the Democrats' fault. Trump's fault. Biden's fault. Is Brandon Johnson's fault. It's J.B. Pritzker's fault. I've never seen a responsible politician say, you know what? That one's on me. Tag that on my sheet, but pay attention to all of the good that I did and understand that I made it out of the ignorance or whatever. So on and so. I've never seen a politician say my fault, ever.
Well, the agreement is with a private entity. So there are different processes that take place when it's a private space, right? Now, if it, just hold on a second, okay? I appreciate you being patient. I really do. This private space and this agreement that the state of Illinois went into with Garda World, that because it is a private space, that there are processes and procedures that apply differently than a publicly owned space. What we've said all along, we've always been forthright that we were testing for environmental hazards. That was never a question of what our work entailed. And so, as I said, that we would make that report available based upon the guidelines and standards, the legal standards that are established. In order for that information to be made available, I've kept my word. That report is available throughout that entire process as the state went into an agreement with Garda World to build this site. There was no discussions along the way throughout this entire process that the methodology that we were using or the standard and the guidelines that we were using established by the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency, that there was no additional information that was provided that would have led us to believe that this particular report that has been validated to be safe by third parties, that somehow that operation will be halted.
He said that these standards that we use in order to determine whether or not it will be safe to build this tent city is standardized by the state of Illinois, A. B, Illinois is the one that went into this contract, and C, is J.B. Pritzker's fault. That's a C student perspective breakdown of exactly what's going on. He's basically saying it ain't my fault, it's their fault, it's their responsibility to take ownership of it. We did the test based off of their standards and everything. Then there was no reason I was led to believe based off of this task that was given to me that we was going about doing it the wrong way. That's what he's saying. Now look at his face. Look at his face. The question isn't whether or not he's communicating effectively, because we know that he can talk really fast and he's good and he's quick on his feet. So we had to break it down from a C student's perspective. But when you look at this man and the words that is coming out of his mouth, is this a believable man right here? Is what he's saying, does it stand? Is it meaningful? Will it stand the test of time? This man right here, take a look at him. I just paused it. I didn't know what face he was going. Y'all want me to give him a different face so y'all can look at it? Y'all want me to give y'all another face so you can look at it a little bit differently and assess it differently? I'm just telling you. This man, and the words that are coming out of his mouth, he said, we didn't know. We going based off of the instructions that's given to us by the Illinois governor and the standards that they've standardized based off of testing this thing. Let's see if we can get anything else out of it. Because, Brandon Johnson, he just be talking. So I'm going to see if I can get something else out of it. And if I can't, we just going to move on to the next story because we got a lot of other stuff to cover.
Mayor, we haven't heard you state what your plan B is. What's plan B?
The plan is consistent with what I've been implementing from the very beginning.
Word salad.
Here's the plan: to eliminate police districts as grounds for shelter. That has always been the plan. And that plan has consisted of finding brick and mortar locations, which we have stood up a new location darn near every single week. And mind you, that the international crisis that I've inherited, that the previous city council did not budget this particular operation for 2023. So we literally had to find brick and mortar locations, create a budget and an entire operation essentially from scratch. And so whether it's base camps at multiple sites, whether it's the faith community, whether it's the federal government, the state, county government, I have brought together all of these forces to address this crisis. Our plan is still the same, that we have to make sure that the federal government does its part to provide support for these individuals who are asylum seekers.
Now he taking the page out of Eric Adams' book and he's saying, listen, it's Biden's fault too. Federal government ain't holding us down. It's Biden's fault. It's Biden's fault. It's Biden's fault. It's Biden's fault. That's what he's saying. Listen, if it was up to me, I would have said, hey, man, we need to close these borders. And anybody that come to Chicago, I'm putting you on the bus and I'm sending you right back home, or I'm going to send you right back to where you came from. Or I will bus them over to another sanctuary city. All he had to say, let me just be very, very clear. The only thing that Brandon Johnson had to do and say was, we are not a sanctuary city and we do not welcome illegal immigrants that pose as migrants into our city because we don't have the infrastructure to budget. And unless we can get a promise from the federal government that they would have an ongoing support for these people, because we have to allocate resources to the people that's here, not resources to people that's just coming in, then that's how we operate. All they had to do was denounce it. And then if they didn't rock with it, then they need to put them on the bus into the city that is a sanctuary city and rock out with there. But nope, they didn't do it. And now they pass and blame as a result of it. And now you got to take ownership of that because you don't get to pass blame, bro.
Protected by international law, the state of Illinois went into a contract with Garda World building on this site, knowing full well that assessments were being handled. And keep in mind, whether it's brick and mortar spots, base camps, there's a location that I know that you all are reporting on, an old CVS, I believe it was. That was a site that the state of Illinois was looking at 6 months ago. I'm moving with incredible expediency. We can't wait 6 months before this.
Why did he do that? I don't understand that. What is I'm moving forward with incredible expediency? What's with all of the extra syllables? Why not just say, yo, we're moving as quick as we can. We moving fast. I'm moving forward with incredible expediency. What does that mean? Listen, we moving as fast as we can in order to make sure we identify all of these sites that we got to get these people stood up in based off of the standards that's given to us. What is this extra words? Giving me a headache. Oh my God.
Decision is made in order for a site to be made available for a crisis that's happening today. And so my plan, I just want to make sure that I'm thorough, because I know that some of you have expressed some concerns that perhaps I'm not as thorough enough. So I want to be thorough enough that the plan is still to make sure that individuals who are being bused to the city of Chicago from a variety of cities, that they are not living outside and they're not living in police districts. And so far, the 4,000 at the height of those coming to the city of Chicago are being sent here. That number is no longer 4,000. We have methodically, we have with dignity, we have done this with care to remove people out of police districts, off of floors, out from the inclement weather, into brick and mortar spaces, as well as looking at how we plan ahead. And base camps are a part of that planning, just like brick and mortar is a part of that planning, just like resettlement is a part of that planning, just like challenging other villages, because this is a sanctuary state. Other villages like Oak Park, which has stepped up and they have taken on individuals who are seeking asylum in the city of Chicago, that this crisis clearly is not going anywhere anytime soon.
Mayor, you talked about
So Illinois, let me tell you what I heard from all of that nonsense. All right, so you gotta sort through the BS in order to really get to the core of what they're saying. Illinois is a sanction. Basically, Brandon Johnson is saying this. Let me get this off my screen. This is giving me a headache. Brandon Johnson is saying this to the people. We not just a sanctuary city. This is a sanctuary state. We're not a sanctuary city. This is a sanctuary state, and we just live here. We didn't ask to be here. And so he's basically putting all of the onus and all of the blame on J.B. Pritzker's plate and saying, listen, they need to hold this responsibility and hold this L, because we're just here based off of the request of them and how they supposed to be moving, and we didn't have no choice in the matter.